Alright, hello everyone, my name is Dîsc, and in this video we have a 26 Darkheart Thicket, and for the week we are Fortified, Afflicted, and Raging. So if you're new to my channel, thanks for tuning in. I have been playing Discipline for a couple of years now, and this is mainly a Mythic Plus channel, where I do my best to teach anyone who's willing to watch a couple tips and tricks from my point of view, things I've learned along the way, some trial and error that hopefully I can get ahead of for you. Additionally, I'm available on Medify if you're interested in a private lesson. I think these videos do a lot of good to teach discipline, but I think a one-on-one environment will always kind of be superior when I can look at what you're doing exactly and have an hour of time to correct it and tell you the do's and don'ts and the why. I think it serves a lot more of a purpose, so please go check me out on Medify if you are interested. And here are our talents. I'm going to try and do this a little bit quicker than usual and just kind of fly through here. So for Afflicted, we have to take Improved Purify, and I use a true mouse over macro for that. That is the easiest way to do it. And then on the Discipline side, I think I talked about this in my last video, but I found I had one floating point left over, and I was testing it in Malicious Intent. I auditioned it down here with TE, and now I have it in Wheel and Woe. And I might have said that in the last video, but I'm really leaning towards this talent point right now. One, I think it's really strong, and two, I think it's really fun, and that has a lot of appeal to me. So by and large, I am just letting this proc go to my Smite, which is essentially an AoE heal. But I think there's a lot of room to min-max this talent with the buffed shield. If you have a UI that shows you really clearly targeted casts, which is a weak R I have, or where dots are in group. So it's really, really powerful, and we have good examples of it in this key. But I like having access to this large single target heal, and knowing it's there, after every penance is proving to be really strong, especially when paired with a UI like I have. I'm getting a lot of good use of it, and yeah, something I always say is, as a healer in a key, the best utility you can bring is a shield. So if you can ever have or prevent someone's health from spiking low, I think that's the most utility you can bring. And these shields are creating for over 300,000, which, keep in mind, that also impacts our Crystalline Reflection talent. And it turns it around to like almost 40,000 damage, which is nothing to bat an eye at. And here is a splash of the healing. Really not much to look at. Atonement is always going to be our #1 driver. The correlation I'm trying to make here is that the bulk of our healing comes from attacking enemies. So we have to be really comfortable with our attack spells, making sure they're always rolling. Also, we have to practice atonement management in group, things like that. But we have to rely on our atonements. We have to rely on our attacks. And that comes from our Mindbender. And here, flipping over to our damage meter, we can actually tell a lot more about our healing and our overall output in this key from this meter. So I like to look at my damage done overall, and for this key it's right at 70,000 per second, which is really, really good. And then looking at the spread of damage, your number 1, 2, and 3 will always be ahead of 4th by a long shot. And generally, I actually see Dark Reprimand second, but I don't think that really means too much. But most importantly, we want our Mindbender on top, and we want him on top by a long shot. And that's because we're always trying to get at least 6 Torments with him, aiming for 7 and 8 if we're playing our cards right. And then a metric I'm starting to add to my videos, and I think it's really important to track, is your Shadow Covenant uptime. There's a little tab in details that says auras, and you can see it in there. But this is the uptime for our Mindbender, which we should be trying to get as high as possible. 44 is a really good number. I've had it over 50, so I think it kind of just depends on the dungeon, but this is right where we want to be. So again, please check me out on medify.gg if you've not been over there yet. I also have a Patreon if you're interested, and I also have a tip line open right here on YouTube called Super Thanks right below the video. So if you learn anything, if you use my weak Rs, please consider throwing this channel a tip. I would really appreciate the support. And with all that being said, let's go ahead and clip over to the key. Alright, here we go. And I wanted to start with this little aside. If you notice on my player frame, it's a little layover I put on. It wasn't recorded in the key, but it's checking to see if my Evoker has cast Source of Magic on me or not. And I'm noticing more and more Evokers forget. I do think it's their responsibility, but checking them only helps you. So I uploaded this WeakR. It only checks for Source of Magic if there's an Evoker in group. Really helpful. And a pull like this is a full send on defense, barrier, and rapture. And this is an amazing example of how to use rapture optimally. Notice I'm using my Grid 2 to track where these depleted absorbs are, and then I was filling them in and refreshing them behind the depletion. And here's finally my Mindbender. And I got 2 executes at the front. I'm aiming for an 8 here. Let's see if I get it or not. Got 7. Pretty good. So again, if you're new to my channel, if you're new to Discipline, I'm talking about the talent Inescapable Torment. It is our main talent as a Dîsc Priest. He interacts mainly with Penance and Death. The name of the game is get as many Penance and Death before he expires. And the way it goes mechanically is we can get 6 always. If you're resetting your Shadow Word Death with Executes, you can get 7 and 8. So that was a 7. And yeah, with Afflicted, I'm using a mouse over macro. Sometimes I try and delay just to get my more important spells out. But just because I don't always get it doesn't mean I'm not playing it. I like to soothe these guys. I've had them pulled before. Better be safe than sorry. And noticing in KUI nameplates, these birds are a really dark red. They have a ton of health. That is where we want to send our Schism and Mindbender. Also noticing on their nameplate, we're tracking the timer of that charge. Tank should be managing that as his job. It's kind of nice to still see it. That WeakR is not completely accurate, but it is impossible to be completely accurate with trash mobs. But yeah, tracking some spells with that WeakR is helpful. And that was another 7 Torment window. Pretty good. EI is up. Probably holding it at this point. A couple UI changes that I'm really liking. You might notice above my penance icon, there's a little counter. It's not fully necessary, but I kind of like seeing it. It's counting the size of my Wheel and Woe buff. So it's counting my bolts. And then also you might notice left and right of my tune, I've reincorporated the blue like proc effect. And that is tracking that's tracking that I have a Harsh Discipline to drop. So here we have another cat. And I got really lucky with that rapture because I put a shield on myself right before he jumped me. These cats on Fortified are no joke, really. And I think the hardest aspect of them is recovering from the initial hit. So if you can get ahead of it with a shield like I did there, that is perfect. That is another example where I had a massive shield on myself from Wheel and Woe, and it almost completely mitigated the hardest part of that mechanic, which is the upfront. And you might have to replay that again to see it, but I shielded myself on both of them, and it made the mechanic insanely easy. So I do like focusing the Night Claws because they are nasty. So I have the shield on, I have the barrier down. Ouch. So that was a defensive Dark Reprimand into myself. Not something I like to do, but again with those bleeds, I really don't like playing around. Okay, that was only a 6 Torment window. That is average, baseline. You guys are getting a little bit low here. And there is a defensive penance into the tank. So just as we're making our way to boss, it's not in this video, and I'll try and talk about it again, but something I've changed in my rotation is one of the reasons I vote for Divine Star is because you can get 2 Divine Stars that are both amplified by Shadow Covenant. It's like 2 Dark Stars if you play it immediately after Mindbender. And it's not... maybe we'll see that in here, but that is a huge increase in your damage if you're getting 2 Dark Stars on a trash pull. Okay, so PI's out. The game here is I'm going to bait. We are non-tyrannical. So with Bigwigs, really all I'm tracking is this Grievous Leap, and I'm making sure I'm shielded. So look at my grid 2. I have a massive shield on myself, and the bleed does nothing. So definitely something to make sure you're doing properly on Tyrannical. It is a little bit more forgiving here, but as a Dîsc Priest, if you're running Wheel and Woe, you absolutely are going to want a shield on the furthest away person before every leap. That's the only way to do it. Okay, that was a defensive penance to clear it. So I opted for a defensive penance into myself because I did not have a shield on me. And it hurt a little bit more. So I have a shield on me now. And it was not a problem. What did I do there? No. So I get my penance, then I shield myself. And a single flash shield recovers. So I think this is a prime example where using Wheel and Woe is insanely powerful. A lot of fights aren't as predictable as this, but you can always give your shield to the furthest person out and it makes it incredibly easy. And then it shouldn't really be a problem similar to the trash mobs outside. The boss does this frontal and I track that timer on his nameplate. Not super important, but sometimes I like putting at least one attack on the nameplate. And yeah, that one, I had a shield on, but the ads ate the shield. And then I was hit with a full bleed. Had to spend some defensive points there. That one was better. It looks like PI's up, but we're holding. Here goes a Mindbender. And on bosses, you should always aim for an 8. Because you have quite a bit of time to just hit on his execute. So let's see if I get an 8 here. Yeah, I always aim for 8 on bosses. So 6, 7, 8. Okay. So that's about as good as you can do. There really are no opportunities for 9. It's a nuanced conversation, but just you should aim for 8. There are some cases where you can get a 9, like if you throw an extra Mind Blast, but it kind of wastes the Mind Blast. I won't do that. So in this pull, I honestly need to change the priority in KUI. The Dryad, the lighter red here, is actually the better target. He does more damage, so he's more threatening in that sense, but he does not have as much health as the others. So you want to focus the Dryads. See how many torments I get. 7. Really good. Kind of seems like a small pull. I think we skip next and then we go big. Also trying my best to get better at using my combat potions, my 5-minute potions. It feels so awkward for me, and I think that's just a sign of I'm not good at it. But always want to play your 5-minute buttons. They don't cost that much gold. It's worth it. I've been using Ultimate Power, but if it's an AoE pull, I'll use Shocking Disclosure. Okay, so to pull like this, we really want to get all of our dots out. Okay, it looks like I dotted 3, let the 2 spread. There's PI. We got 6 torments. That was really good baseline. In a pull like this where no one is in execute range yet, 6 is the best you're going to do. You have no atonements. Radiance. Okay, I do have some executes here. Let's see how many I get. Using my focus macro to return to the schism. 6, 7, 8. So we got another 8. That is excellent. I'm Soothe. Shroud. And with this next pull, the name of the game is maximizing our fear, or psychic scream. So we've seen it already in this key, but I have interrupt opportunities pop up as a stationary red bar above my action buttons. And it's not a bad idea to prioritize yourself, like right there, because if any other fear gets off, you can pick up the recovery with a dispel. So it's generally a little bit better to hold on to a fear, but since I was selected, I went ahead and just used it, canceled that interrupt, helped the transition out. And here is our Mindbender. Seven Torments, pretty good. So not every pull has a fear chance, but every dungeon has really good opportunities. And since fear is really not the best interrupt to bring to a group, not the most useful, it's really important we do our best to use it optimally. And that system with the red bars, I think, is the way to do it. And I believe I'm selected here again first, so I drop early. Yeah, and I don't really see much of a need to track interrupts in party. I'd rather just track the important cast and play fear if it gets too close. So maybe back to the subject of getting 2 dark stars. I noticed it is possible, and I'm actually so excited to start playing that type rotation. It really doesn't matter that much unless it's a large AoE pull, but I think it's worth practicing even on small ones if you're trying to just squeeze some damage out. So you'll Mind Bender, Star, then Mind Blast, Penance, Death. And then if you do that, you do 6 Torments, you'll get another Dark Star at the very end. Okay, so I have changed up my bigwigs to only show the timer of the tank throw. But the best thing you can do with these Shattered Earths is make sure you have your Mindbender running at least. On Tyrannical, you're going to want Raptures out. You're going to want pre-barriers. I think we see that here too. And the tank does really good here with that breath. It is best to outrange it. Avoidable damage is always best to avoid. And if anyone knows the actual timer of this Shattered Earth, I don't really know it. So with that tank grab, it was a little unconventional. I went into a Rapture, so I shielded myself once and then just Rapture spammed the tank, making sure everyone in the group was also Raptured. But in the tank throw mechanic, the off target, the secondary target, takes 1 slam, but the tank himself takes a lot more than just that. So I think we see it on the next slam. Yeah, so I shield myself as the secondary and paints up the tank. And that is the best thing you can do. I had a heal pre-loaded for myself, but the tank is in more damage. I'm sorry, the tank is in more danger. So give him the paints up, shield the secondary. That's the best you can do. And for that one, that was a Rapture. Here goes our PI as well. And this next script is a little bit different than the previous one. I noticed the tank has defensives rolling, so I paints up myself and just flash heal him. And yeah, if you notice on the right side of my unit frames, everyone has space for 1 box, and it shows me if a defensive is active. So in a case like that where I saw our Paladin was protected, I gave my external, my paints up to myself. And it worked out. Even with paints up, I went down to, what was that, 50% health? And there was a, so what do I do? Shield wall. Desperate Prayer, went into Rapture, spamming the tank. And that is a pretty unconventional use of Rapture that I've found a lot of use in lately. So yeah, I made sure I covered the whole group, but favored the tank since he was getting thrown. Oh man, that sucks. I was watching my Mindbender and he was out. I could have had at least a 7 torment window there, but I stopped at 5. I just totally missed him. Okay, so this is a little scary because Evoker just called no defensives. Looking at my spells, I have no defensives either. Not even a shield wall. So that was a little premature, but I put a defensive penance into myself, and never a bad idea to do in a case like that. At least make sure you live, and everyone else will kind of take some responsibility as well, but your defensive penance into yourself is really strong. And for this one, not as scared because I have something to attack. Before I didn't. You can't really attack those little guys. Looks like I went for a paints up on myself anyway, just to be safe. And it kind of sucks here a little bit. I spawned a whelpling and had to fear it, but right here is a much better place to place your fear intentionally. And there we have that red bar again with the trumpeting noise indicating a fear opportunity, and it is the metamorphosis. So yeah, just something to keep in mind. These guys are also raging, so your fear won't work if you spend it late. So it's kind of better in my opinion just to cancel one of the blood bolts. Yeah, so that sucked. That happened because of raging, but we have a guy. Go ahead and throw my Mindbender on him just to help out while I can. Man, I love Dark Star. So that's actually one of the questions I get asked most in the comments, is why I use Star over Halo. And it's for a couple reasons. One of them being that I just discovered we can fit 2 Dark Stars in a single Shadow Covenant. I think that is pretty nice. Kind of along the same lines is you can always fit 1 star per Shadow Covenant, and with Halo it's only every other. And then I think the main reason I prefer Star is in Mythic Plus, I think there's more utility in having an extra instant cast. So it's something you can always press while moving. And I think that is a major advantage compared to Halo, which is a cast. I really suck with those eggs in the door. So this is non-tyrannical boss, but we still have some good examples here of how to handle these mechanics. The Downdraft and Roar are back-to-back, so I'm tracking both of those with bigwigs. And we want to save our Mindbender for the first. And I believe I try and delay him a little so it covers both attacks. And then when it comes to the dragon's mechanics, the more pixel stacked you are under his model, the less you're blown. But then kind of towards the end of it, I let myself get blown out. I shielded myself. And then everyone was atoned, so I kept attacking. So I let him blow me out to try and kind of bait that mechanic away from the melee. And that is also a great place to always at least cast a shield on yourself. So no one's atoned. A late Radiance. It looks like for this one, I went to Rapture, Shield Wall, and I don't know if that was a mistake or things just kind of got away from me, but I didn't play my Mindbender at all on that one. So it looks like I had a late Radiance. I went into Rapture. That was my Shield Wall. But we're not missing this time. Everyone has long atonements. Looks like I still cast a Radiance for the proc. Everyone is full health. I paints up myself. And for that one, that is a different way to handle that attack. I've not really talked about it too much yet this season, but pre-casting a heal on top of damage is the best way you can recover health. You want to do it quickly, when you can. So when that roar is coming out, I precast a Radiance, and my Radiance pinged everyone right after the damage went out. So quick recovery. Wheel-O-Mo shield on myself. And that was a good thing because I got the RNG. Mindbender was out, so I kept playing him, and that was a 6 Torment window. Star on the ads. And in this interim, it goes the same for each of them, but I'm really just spamming for Smite. It is a tight window, and the name of the game in between damage phases is recovering our Mindbender. His cooldown, that is. So boss down. This hallway's a little bit tricky, and I don't have a best solution for it yet, but we have a lot of targeted mechanics. I didn't notice the play. Shit. Okay. I've said before, I'll say it again. Something I'm not good at in this game is the walls. Okay, so we do have disease dispels in here as well. That is my moment. That Evoker trolled him, honestly. But we have disease dispels. They are fortified diseases, so they are going to hurt. They can stack. In a play like this where we have stacking diseases, it's better to wait for a 2-stack. You don't want to waste your dispel on just one. Yeah, so there's a 2-stack dispel. 7 torments. Looking good. Yeah, and with these guys, there are a lot of targeted attacks, so it's kind of better to just flood. I do have my weak aura proccing for a targeted cast. If you see it in party, it's a good idea to shield them because they're about to get fireballed. And I think it happens to me once in here. Yeah, I got the curse. So that was the proest cauterize I've probably ever seen in my life. But our group is short a decurse, so the Evoker took the responsibility and assigned his cauterize for that curse. Really, really pro. Okay, so here I have the red circle, Wheel-O-Mo shield on myself, and my health never went into the danger zone. And that one, there's not really... Okay, so we have these guys, more of the same mechanics. Better to just be safe, open with a barrier. That was a really bad Mindbender window. I only had 5 torments. But we're doing good here. Everyone is shielded from... Wow. So that was a defensive penance. I also had a sack for the win. Oh yeah, I forgot about this. So just let the record show, I was trying to give it life. And I don't know why my mouse over wasn't working. I even clicked on their target. That wasn't working. I don't know what just went on. But I tried. But those deaths, you might have to replay it to see what exactly happened, but I think it's just... Oh yeah, here I'm double checking my keybind. But those are my off-screen bars if anyone is curious what I mean by hiding some of your spells. But it's a lot of single target damage. We had shields in the group from the Evoker. I had defensives, but having a death there is not that uncommon. It looks like we have PI. Making sure I get a lot of dots in party. This is a pretty big group. Radiance straight into Mindbender. Gave myself a Wheel-O-Mo shield in the middle, just playing defensive. That was 7 torments. That was really good to do in a large pull like this. I sniped out an execute. And into a rapture just to play safe. A lot of people ask about when to use cooldowns. And when it comes to Rapture, yeah, I try and use it after Mindbenders because healing usually drops off at that point. Or if a Pain Sup is on cooldown Rapture. And with this guy, we have a lot of really interesting mechanics. We have Dispels, we have single target hits, and we also have large dots. So this is a case where my bars and my UI really help guide my eyes to what I need to see. The red dotted line is the dot. The white dotted line is the hit, which is also the stack mechanic. And then this is the one place where I actually have messages turned on through bigwigs if I'm selected with the paranoia. And that's when you have to not stack. That was a defensive penance for recovery, trying to just save a Pain Sup here. And as we approach 50, the game plan is Rapture everybody and Barrier. Okay, so I missed that one. That wasn't the best example. But when that white dotted line goes out in party from the targeted cast, the idea is you want to shield them. You really don't want that health to spike too low. 60%. Okay, that was a lot better. That was a Wheel and Woe shield on the Rogue before he got the, what is it called, Nightmare Bolt. And here comes 50, so we're about to have a group-wide hit. Rapture, Barrier. My Rapture was one person too late, but noticing in party how I am refreshing those dark blue values with my Grid 2. And that arguably was a misplay looking at it. He had defensives rolling, and I still Pain Supped him. But this is one area where the mechanics got the best of me a little. I should have already been in melee, or closer to melee at least. But I also missed my shield, so I got in a danger zone. And right there, that was a slight miss as well, but thankfully we had the recovery from the Paladin. Looks like he gave him a lay on hands or a fat wog. Okay, so there is where the message helped me. Growing paranoia on you. That means unstack. Really important. Another defensive penance to recover some of that dot health. That was a nice shield just in time to help out the Evoker. Yeah, so things really just went awry here at the end, and this boss is confusing if you ask me, but yeah, we just had an Afflicted go off. I totally just missed it, so I think the Paladin missed it too, but I missed this one. Boom. Yeah, so this is one of the fights where you really have to pay close attention to the mechanics. I think these weak R's that help me guide my eye are highly useful. And wow, we really didn't end strong, but we started strong. And this wasn't for IO, I was just trying to get a video for my channel. But looking at the avoidable damage, I almost took none, which is exactly where you want to be. It's an aspect of play I don't think everyone gives enough priority to, but it's incredibly important to guard your own health as a healer. Talked about it before. A lot of people don't agree with me, but I leave my keyboard hand, this is a whole separate subject, but I leave my keyboard hand primarily for my movement, and then I do the most of my casting with my mouse. So in my opinion, freeing up the responsibility of WASD to just do WASD and not have tons of spell casting on my keyboard, it really enables you to prioritize something that is so important. And I really don't think you're going to get low avoidable damage if you don't have good keybinds, but always aim low, lower the better. I think it shows a really measurable type of skill, and it's something you should always try and do. But that was a pretty good run overall. We had really good poison dispels from the group. Playing your utility is always important. Our tank did really good. with his job. And I think we had a lot of examples in here of what not to do and what you could do better. So again, if you're interested in private lesson, please check me out on Medify. I also have a tip line open here called Super Thanks right below the video. I have a Patreon if you would rather, and the channel would really appreciate the support. But yep, Happy New Year, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, Dîsc.